The Magadino Plain, also known as Ticino's Granary, is the biggest agricultural surface in the entire canton, located southern Switzerland. It stretches from Bellinzona to the outskirts of Locarno, and it covers a flat area of approximately 13 by 3 kilometers, where 15,000 people live. It is crossed by the Ticino River that flows straight in direction of Verbana Lake. Throughout the centuries, the river has changed its shape several times, affecting the landscape, the livelihood, and the health of the local population. We have just jumped 700 years back to the past, to medieval times. The situation at the time is a lot different from today. In this period, the Ticino is a meandering river that creates a lot of floodplains and swampy areas. During the 16th century, the river morphology changed into a braided river, and it keeps more or less this shape until the middle 19th century. This kind of environment favors the proliferation of mosquitoes, in particular A. maculipennis and Culex, the main vectors of Plasmodium malariae. The major outbreaks of malaria on Magadino Plain take place in Gudo, Cugnasco, Gordola, Contone, and Catenazzo. This means that there are many cases of fevers in these villages, especially during the summer months. As Dr. Galletti explains, around 1860. One need only sleep a couple of nights there to come down with malarial fever. In order to escape from disease, people move to villages in the surrounding mountains above the plain. The situation begins to improve in 1868 after the big flood that destroys much of the mosquitoes' habitats, but it doesn't totally remove the malaria from the plain. In 1882, an engineer, Mr. Banchini, proposed the first project of land reclamation of the plain. In 1885, the government submits the project proposal. However, it encounters many opposition between conservatives and liberals. This leads to a public vote in which the proposal is rejected. Nevertheless, the following year, the government decides to proceed with the project, even against the popular will, and establishes a working group, the so-called Consorzio per la Sistemazione del Fiume Ticino. In 1888, the first part of land reclamation begins. This consists in the realignment of the river. Construction work lasts until 1897, and it results in a straight and confined river. However, there is still a lot of work to do to complete the land reclamation. In fact, in 1904, the professor Bruno Galli Valerio describes the situation on the plains as follows. On both banks of the Ticino River, across the entire Magadino Plain, there are immense swamps and plenty of Amaculipennis mosquitoes. During the First World War, the Swiss government orders that all the potentially cultivable areas are to be exploited. This gives the input to continue the reclamation work under the supervision of the consortium. Many drainage canals are in fact built in these years. In 1921, the construction work is interrupted due to the opposition of the landowners. Nonetheless, the reclamation process starts again in 1929, and it continues until 1942 with the second part of the land reclamation. The main efforts in this period are focused on building streets and bridges and the grouping of fields. That brings the number of parcels from 13,000 to 4,000 and a decrease in landowners. During the third step of land reclamation between 1942 and 1955, complementary work is accomplished, like the creation of a new important channel called Canale 101 that helps the drainage of the area around Gudo. As a result, the Magadino Plain is finally reclaimed in the second part of the 20th century. Afterwards, the plain becomes an agricultural area of cantonal relevance. The big flood of 1868 combined with the reclamation process permitted to eradicate the malaria from the Magadino Plain and the whole canton of Ticino. This led to great benefits which are still visible today. The population has abandoned the mountain villages to settle on the plain. Consequently, the number of inhabitants living in the area has strongly increased, causing a considerable urbanization around the villages.